Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rescue, Restoration, and Reclamation, the 3 R's in Protecting Our Children webinar, hosted by the National Alliance for Drug-Endangered Children and presented by Mr. James Koppel. My name is Katie Bositis, and I'll be coordinating today's webinar with Mr. Koppel. We are delighted to have you with us today and ask for your patience as I take a few brief moments to go over some logistics. First, to optimize your webinar experience, please close any streaming audio or video applications you may have open. In fact, you might want to close down all other open applications as they could affect the quality of your webinar experience. Second, the slides for today's presentation are now available for download from our website at www.nationaldac.org. They're located on our homepage in the What's New section. If you've got a small screen, you may need to scroll down a bit before you see them. Today's webinar is scheduled for 1 hour. Jim will speak for about 45 to 50 minutes, leaving us about 10 to 15 minutes for questions at the end. And because we do not have audio turned on for the attendees, the way you submit your questions is through the questions box in your control panel. They'll be answered in the order in which they are received, so go ahead and submit them as you think of them. Finally, when you exit the webinar, you'll notice that you'll be prompted to take a brief survey. We do covet your feedback, so please take a moment to fill it out. If you're participating with a group under one registration today, we just ask that the coordinator for the group fill out the survey and let us know how many folks joined you. And now I will briefly introduce our presenter. James Koppel is a founding partner of Strategic Applications International and the president of Servant Forge and Adapt International. He has facilitated 22 governor summits on methamphetamine and 3 national summits on the effects of methamphetamine and alcohol on communities. He is the founding president of Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America and former COO and VP of the National Crime Prevention Council. Mr. Koppel works internationally, mobilizing communities to prevent drug and alcohol abuse, HIV and AIDS, and is passionate about economic and social development in Africa. He is currently the project director for the Rural Law Enforcement Methamphetamine Initiative, funded by the U.S. Department of Justice, and project director for a new technical assistance and training contract on tribal methamphetamine for the COPS office in the U.S. Department of Justice. Mr. Koppel recently published his 3rd book, Fatal Attraction, America's Youth and Their Affair with Alcohol, on Lulu Press, a copy of which 5 lucky attendees will have the opportunity to win at the end of today's webinar. We'll be doing a random drawing, and we will notify you by email if you've won a copy of Mr. Koppel's book. Mr. Koppel has 8 children and 15 grandchildren. When not working and traveling, he and his wife Colleen are on board their sailboat, the Seeker. Welcome, Jim. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Katie, and it's a pleasure to be here and to have this conversation and share this information with the participants today. The issue of drug-endangered children has been a part of my career for a number of years. In fact, 20 years ago, when I was working in Wichita, Kansas, I spent 2 years, 4 nights a week, doing street interventions with our gang unit and our Special Community Action Task Force that worked on issues related to substance abuse and gang violence in some of our neighborhoods in Wichita, Kansas. And in preparation for this webinar, I went back and reviewed some of my notes because over time, obviously in the past 20 years, a great deal has taken place, and policies, protocols, and procedures have been adopted by many states related to the dangers that children face, especially in drug-involved homes. And I went back and reviewed some of my notes because I'm a journalist. I keep a lot of journals. And realized that in the 2 years that I was working with the gang unit, we saw over 420, and to be precise, 426 children were involved in homes where we were working either a gang case or a substance abuse case or a crack house or a heroin den where children were actually found. And so out of 426 children, at that time, we were always shocked when we saw children. We weren't too sure what to do about it. We didn't have a lot of guidance on policies or procedures. There wasn't a lot of effective coordination between law enforcement agencies and or social services at that particular point in time. If we saw that there were children actually being abused, those cases were obviously reported. But the procedures and protocols that were established between law enforcement and social service agencies at that time were very were rudimentary. They were not yet in place, And obviously we've made great strides, and National DEC has been a major player in helping to facilitate those conversations, and many of your states have already adopted protocols and procedures that have gone a long way in protecting young people. But as I've looked at this issue over the past 20 years, having for 5 years served as president of CADCA and then at the National Crime Prevention Council, and then working extensively on the methamphetamine issue for the last 8 or 9 years, one of the things that I continue to be concerned about is the systemic issues around our interventions and oftentimes the lack of coordinated prevention. I think we've made great strides in the kinds of intervention protocols that exist between law enforcement and social services, and in many cases and in many times it's been law enforcement that has driven that change, because they've seen they've been at the tip of the spear when they've gone into a crack house or they've gone into a meth house and they've seen children exposed to these dangers. We've all recognized that alcohol, illicit drugs, are obviously a risk factor for the safety and security of children. But exactly how we move forward on this issue, intervention procedures have been fairly well outlined. However, prevention strategies have not been as aggressive as I think they could be. So my presentation today focuses on some of the systemic issues that we need to address in the prevention side so that we can do better prevention and more effective intervention when it comes to drug-endangered children. To that end, I talk about the 3 R's in this process, that we're really talking about rescuing the child, restoring the family, and reclaiming the community. That without these 3 R's, we really fail in our mission to help drug-endangered children. We have to be sure that we're doing everything we can to remove a child from a situation where there's considerable harm and danger to that child's life. Again, 20 years ago when I was in Wichita, Kansas, I'll never forget one of the nights that we were out with our gang unit. There were 15 children. We were told by a confidential informant inside this house, $30,000 in crack cocaine, 9 weapons, including 2 machine pistols. And when we went into the house, my job had become to isolate